Okay, in today's video, I want to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence, AI. Now, I know I recently did a video saying that AI is not internal audit's biggest priority, but it probably is something that you should be considering and taking a look at and having something included in your audit plan for this year. And so I want to talk just briefly at the beginning here, again, a little bit about AI, how AI impacts or could be put into kind of your internal audit plan and what you should be considering. And then I wanted to share a little bit about what some people are actually doing. So, kind of the first question is, well, what are you doing AI related in your 2025 audit plan? Maybe something, maybe a lot of things, maybe nothing, right? And so that's kind of the first question for you to ask yourself is, are we doing anything related to AI? And I know a lot of people are kind of struggling to know what to do. And so that's why I'm going to share with you actually some of the things that people are actually doing when it comes to AI. So we've been talking a lot about this in the Audit Leader Forum, probably pretty much almost something on every call all of last year. And we're going to continue to talk about it as well. So if you'd like to have more in-depth conversations with other audit leaders about that, reach out to me and I'll give you more information about the Audit Leader Forum and how you can join us on those calls. Okay, so to start with, I just want to level set again a little bit about AI because it's important for us to be thinking about AI in at least two different ways. Okay, and this is, I think, one reason why people get so confused. They don't know what to do. Everybody's talking about it. Some boards and executives are asking internal audit what they're going to be doing about it. And quite honestly, most people don't know. They don't know. And how do I know that? Because I've been talking with chief audit executives all year about some of these things, about some of the questions that the board is asking, about some ways they would like to use it as well. Okay, so what are these two areas? The first one is how internal audit can use AI, right, to improve either the efficiency or effectiveness of what you're doing. So there's a lot of people that are out there and kind of playing with some different things on, okay, how can we use AI to help us maybe audit better, audit more efficiently, and there's some different things that are out there that people are using and can use in order to help you do your job better. Now, some of the questions that are coming from the board and from executives are that exactly. What are you going to do, Mr. or Mrs. Chief Audit Executive, about using AI in your particular function? How are you going to use it to become more efficient or effective? Okay, so that's the first one. First area to kind of be thinking about that you may or may not include in your audit plan. The second one is how your organization is using AI and what risks that might lead to, and therefore what assurance or advisory or consulting projects you may want to do around the way your organization is using AI. Okay. So again, those are kind of the two different areas to think about. And I think it's important for us to think about them separately, right? Because some organizations may say, I'm not even going to look at how I'm going to use it. I'm just concerned this first year about how the organization is using it. That's okay. That's a perfectly fine way of looking at it. Other people may say, I just want to, look at it from my team perspective. We don't really have a handle on it from an organization, so I don't really want to look at that yet. That's an acceptable option as well. Okay. Others may say, hey, we want to do both in this current year. And again, it's going to depend a lot on the context that you're in, how large your department may be, right? The number of resources that you have, other things like that for you to consider. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. So as we get in and look at this, let's maybe take the first one: how internal audit can use AI to become more efficient or effective. Now, in this way, you need to also, again, think about AI in two different ways. There's predictive AI, which is what we've been doing for a while, or what some people have been doing for a while with things like data analytics. That's actually a part of AI. It's a predictive thing. Okay, so first off, you may ask yourself the question, am I doing anything about that? Well, if you're not doing anything around that, then why would you necessarily want to jump directly into generative AI if you're not even doing the predictive? And again, it can go both ways, right? You could decide to jump the one and go just to generative, okay? So how are people actually using this, or what are some ways that you could use it? And of course, you probably are aware of certain, learning models like a ChatGPT or other things like that, where you can actually use that to maybe create audit reports. So a lot of people have been playing with that. Can I teach the AI how to look at my work papers, provide it with certain information, and have it help me summarize the results of the audit, and maybe even create a presentation, create my audit report, other communications from that. There are some tools out there that can help you do that. Again, I'm not going to give you specifics on tools because you need to kind of choose what you would want to use. But that is an area where people have been looking at, helping in doing that. Some people are looking at using AI in a way of helping them do their test work. Okay. And so, just like we've, in the past have built scripts and other coding to perform predictive analytics, you can also train some of the AI tools to help you perform your audit. Now, this is one of the areas where, again, it's very immature. A lot of people are still navigating that. And here's one of the biggest lessons that people have learned. And one of the reasons, or one of the areas that people are focused on this year, which is prompt engineering. Okay, and if you're not familiar with prompt engineering, what it means is, when you're working with AI, you have to give it prompts. You have to ask it to do certain things. And the quality of the questions you ask, the quality of the prompts that you give it, will determine the outcome. And so what a lot of internal audit departments have found is we need to learn how to do prompt engineering better. And so a lot of the companies that are digging into this are actually providing training. They're getting training for their staff on how to use prompt engineering better, right? Because again, there's an art and a science to it that we really need to learn and understand the right kind of questions to ask, the right kind of data to give in order to be able to get the results that we are hoping for. Now, for very simple things, the prompt engineering may not be as important. If you just want it to calculate a financial ratio, that's probably not something that you need a lot of expertise in prompt engineering for. But if you're asking it to actually, start performing some of the testing steps, if you're using it as a way to help make some summaries or conclusions about the work you've done, well, then you're probably going to need to have more expertise in that particular area, because it's a much more complex area, and you have to be careful and kind of teach the program what you mean. And so, a simple example is some of the words that we use in internal audit have a very specific meaning to us and to our profession, but they may have a different meaning to the general public. And so, again, if you're using terms that we know what they mean, but the AI may see it as something different based on what the general population believes, that's something that would need to be trained, or we would need to use different wording, right, that the general population uses for this other word that we're using. So that's one of the areas where, again, most of the people that I've been talking with that are serious about using AI in their audit function themselves are going to be spending some time this year just understanding some of the tools that are out there and in kind of getting their people up to speed on skills like prompt engineering. Okay, the second area, which is how your organization is utilizing AI and what risks relate to it. Because again, we need to stop and realize AI is not a risk. It's just a thing, but that AI can lead to certain risks because a risk is an undesirable effect on the achievement of objectives. And so, again, it's in the IT space. And so, when we think about some of the general IT related effects or impacts or risks, they are around things like confidentiality, availability of the information, right? That only certain people who are supposed to have access to the information. We're worried about things like the accuracy of the underlying data, the accuracy of the coding, and the impact that it can have if it's not right. And so think about some of those basic IT risks. Those are the things that AI actually has an impact on. But it's not all just risk, okay? So we also need to be realizing that AI can also be an opportunity and a reward for our organization, right? In fact, some organizations, they're getting tremendous value from using AI. And so as auditors, we don't want to just be the negative people thinking only about the risks, but also thinking about the opportunities. So how is your organization actually using AI? And so that is one of the areas that a lot of people are spending focus on this year because they don't know, right? Even their organization sometimes doesn't know, or the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. So a lot of things this first year is just really understanding the context and what's there. Now, some of you may be saying, well, our organization doesn't use AI. Well, you may think that it's not using AI, but I will tell you this. If your organization uses Salesforce, if your organization uses Microsoft, there's a very good chance that your organization is using AI because that's built in, right? So things like Microsoft Copilot, if that's turned on, your organization is using AI in that way. Salesforce, same thing, right? And there's others. If you're a Google shop, I think what they're calling it, there's Gemini, some other things that are out there. So first off, you really need to kind of understand where AI is being used, and then start thinking about it in terms of some of these standard IT risks that we're thinking about. From there, you can start to kind of determine what to audit. But here's what a lot of people have found is that their organization is very immature when it comes to things even like governance. And so, again, there should be some IT governance in general in your organization. There may need to be some new IT governance built around AI, but there may not be as well, right? Because, again, AI is just a new application that's being used. So you don't necessarily need to have a whole separate plan for every different application that you have when you're coming back to some of the same basic IT risks. Okay. But again, that's where a lot of people are spending their effort this year, is just understanding what is the IT governance structure as it relates to AI. And again, if it's already in place, then there may be an option for you to do some, gap analysis work, some assurance work if your organization is mature enough, or sometimes it may even be some advisory work that you end up doing in helping to develop some of those governance structures. Because until you understand and have the governance structures in place, there's not a lot to audit. And so again, this has been something that I've heard from many audit leaders. It goes kind of like this. They go out, they start looking into, what is going on, what is their governance, what are things going on, and then they stop. And they realize, okay, well, we can't really do a project in this area because the IT governance doesn't exist yet. And so they're waiting, right? Maybe they looked at it last year and said, well, we're not ready yet. We don't have anything in place. It doesn't do us a lot of good to go do a report and say, hey, guess what, everybody, you're not ready, because the organization already knows that. So a lot of those organizations now are waiting to do those gap analysis or kind of light assurance projects around governance until 2025. Until those things are in place, there's nothing to audit. Does that make sense? If there's nothing in place, there's nothing to audit. And so sometimes we have to wait until things are in place before we can actually get started. Okay. So again, that's something that I'm hearing a lot. People were excited last year. They tried to put some things on their audit plan, but they effectively had to move it out into 2025. So that may be what you're experiencing as well. Now, for other companies that are a little further along in the AI maturity, there's actually some organizations that are even doing things now like testing the AI, right? Because again, there's a lot of things that we need to look at and kind of peel behind the layers to see what's actually going on. So as an example, one of the people was just playing with some and gave it a mathematical calculation in this one tool that they were using. And the answer that came back was incorrect. And because they pulled out a calculator and they actually did it on the calculator and saw that the AI was calculating it incorrectly. So they went back to the AI and said, well, that's not actually the answer. And the AI said, oh, yeah, I'm sorry. It's actually this. You're right. I was wrong. Well, the second answer was wrong, too. So, that already shows that maybe that particular program isn't really ready. The coding behind the scenes, whatever it's learning, it's not actually coming up with the right answer. And so, again, from an assurance perspective, right, if we start looking at, okay, what are we relying on the AI to do in our organization? And is it actually doing it accurately, right? Because again, accuracy is one of those classic IT risks that we would think about. But put information into the system and it's doing calculations, is it calculating it correctly? So that may be an area, right, that you want to take a look at. Others around confidentiality. So, what data is being pulled into the tool? Is it maintained? Is there confidentiality in there? Or maybe has some confidential organizational information been shared in the public domain? Now, you would think this wouldn't happen, but some very large companies have made this mistake, and their information has gotten leaked out into the public domain. Now, once it's out there, it's there, right? And so maybe there's something around confidentiality of the data, right, that you're wanting to look at. Kind of back to the computation side of it, again, generative AI is supposed to learn And so is it continually changing the data set, right? Or is it using a static data set? Because again, that can be an issue. If it's dynamically changing, but it's dynamically changing with the wrong information, then all of a sudden, before you know it, the data is corrupted, right? Because again, we want to look at the integrity of the data as well. That's a classic IT example as well. Okay. So, hopefully this starts to give you some ideas for you to stop and look at and say, okay, well, what do we have planned for this year? I've given you some examples in general, because I can't give you specifics, some general things about what other people are doing, right? And so, what do you want to do this year? Questions to ask yourself, right? Do we want to use, is part of our focus is to use AI in our internal audit group? If it is, there's a whole bunch of questions that you can ask there. Well, what's our strategy? How do we want to use AI in order to help us accomplish that? Not to do it just because it's cool and everybody else is doing it and we think it's fun, but how does it actually tie back to our internal audit strategic plan, to the objectives that we have of the function, to the work that we're actually performing for the organization, right? Some things to think about. Do I have people on staff who, maybe already understand prompt engineering? Do I need to get them trained? Do I need to hire people from the outside, right? These are all questions for you to be able to ask in that way. On the flip side, what's the organization doing? Well, how mature are you? Are you actually, using it in a systematic way, or are people just kind of playing with little tools in their different areas? What's the governance structure that's in place? Is there a governance structure in place? Is there something in place that you can use as criteria to be able to perform an assurance project, a consulting project, maybe a gap analysis, right? And so again, things for you to think about, because I know people are excited. It's sexy. A lot of people are thinking that this is the highest risk and the biggest priority that internal audit should have this year. It's not, right? There's lots of other things that are more important, but you probably should be doing something. There should be something in your audit plan, even if it's just understanding the context that you're operating in, and if your company is choosing to use it or not. But like I said, even though they may not realize they're using it, it's probably being built into a lot of the applications that you're already using. And I gave you the example before of Salesforce and Microsoft. Those are two that a lot of people are using. Those companies are incorporating AI into their application. And so it's important for you to kind of understand what those are. So hopefully that's helpful for you. I'm sure there will be more coming on AI as we get going forward, but at least now you've got a little bit of an idea of what other people are doing and some questions that you can ask yourself to determine what's best for you to do this year based on the context that you're operating in. So with that, I'm going to sign off for now, and I will see you on the next video.